Welcome to Safe and Sound, sponsored by White Mountain Fire and Life Safety and Ladies Day LLC. Today on the show, we have Nick Lund, the president of TRAX Association and chairman of the Arizona State Committee on Trails, and Mike Monahan, executive officer of Navajo County Search and Rescue. Welcome, guys.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good, good. I got the names right?
Yes.
Everything's good, good. I wanted to actually have you on here. Leah, the producer, had brought it up to me, too, that this would be a good segment for the community to listen to. So first I want to talk about, Mike, what it is that you do. Or Mike, sorry, Mike, what is it that you do?
I'm with Navajo County Search and Rescue, and we're an independent organization that works very closely with the Sheriff of Navajo County. When somebody becomes lost in the forest or even in town, when they can't be found directly by sheriff's deputies, then we're called out. Our unit's primarily a tracking unit. We follow footprints and sign looking for the person getting a direction of travel.
Okay, are you deployed a lot?
It all depends on the year. Not as much as we would like, but we do train every month, so it fills in a lot of the time. When we do get called, sometimes it can be for a day, sometimes it can be for a week or 2 weeks. It can be substantial.
Is it pretty big? Sometimes it's pretty big. You bring in other SAVs from other counties?
We've been on 2 or 3 5-county searches, one just recently. And so yes, then it can involve 50 or 100 people, and lots of resources are used then. How
do you manage that, through an incident command structure? Or?
We do. We're definitely incident command. We're currently working on being able to direct a search like that ourselves. During this last search, Coconino County came in and they have a IC command unit, and they brought that over and they took over the direction of the search.
How many volunteers do you have?
33 and 4 that want to join right now.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a really good organization. My brother got lost one year, and it was probably, 2007 or 8. And he got lost when it was snowing, and he left out in Linden and went out the back of where my dad's house was, and went for a hike, and it wasn't snowing at the time. And luckily he had turned around and got a cell phone because he wanted to take pictures. And by the time it started snowing, it snowed 3 feet in like an hour. So he couldn't find his way back. And it was still so cold and so dense out there that I drove home and I just laid on my horn so that maybe, he would be able to hear it. He couldn't hear anything. He had my dogs with him. He was out there. We had people come in. I don't know, it might have been the SAVs at the time, but we had a lot of people come in and look for him, including the fire department. And he left at 10 o'clock that morning. We didn't get him back until 9 p.m. that night. And he had he didn't even have a jacket on, and he was in sneakers. And it happens. Yeah. It really does, and it happens quite easily, especially since it's a rural area. Now, Nick, what is it that you do?
I'm president of TRAX. TRAX is a group of about 350 volunteers that build and maintain the White Mountain Trail System, which is the trail system in the National Forest here for hikers, mountain bikers, equestrian, bird watchers, hunters, etc. So it's a 200-mile trail system that's in the National Forest, and we're the group that builds and maintains that trail system.
What do you use to maintain it? What do you have to, do you have to clear debris and trees?
We first of all, we go out and GPS where the trail is proposed. Then we take all that GPS information into the Forest Service. They do a complete study on it, an environmental protection study, etc. And once they approve it, then we go out with hose and saws and everything and literally clear the area, make a trail that's about 24 inches wide. And it's a trail system that's been in the place since the late 80s. It's very heavily used up here. We have a lot of people regionally that use it, a lot of people that come up here on vacation, and the first thing they ask for when they check into the motel is there a trail system guide? And so we have a trail system guide that lists all our trails. Now, the reason that they asked me to come on this program with Mike is last summer we initiated and completed a project to improve the safety on the trail system. So when these guys get called out, they can locate people much more readily. What we did was we put up new white reflective diamonds, reflective so that they're more easily seen in low light conditions like early in the morning, late at night. We put a code on each one of them. The code represents the trail and the location. So this would be the Los Burros Trail, location number 16. Well, what does that mean, location? We put these about every quarter of a mile on the entire 200-mile trail system. So this would be the 16th diamond on every quarter-mile part of the Los Burros Trail. We GPS the location of these diamonds. So we took GPS units, took the reading of the location of them, and provided that information to all of the regional emergency responders and the dispatchers. So if somebody calls 911, they say, I'm standing by LB number 16. They have a map. There's maps on our website about the location of it so that the emergency responders can locate these people much more readily. I talked to Butch Hansen, who's the president of the Navajo County Sheriff's Auxiliary Volunteers, that they do a lot of the rescues in this region. I said, Butch, what would happen previously? Well, since the late 80s, we've been using blue diamonds, and people would call and say, I'm out on one of the trails, I'm lost, or I'm hurt, or whatever the situation is. I don't even remember the name of the trail I'm on, and they search and rescue would have to send out multiple officers, and it would take literally hours to locate people. With this new system, we've had a bunch of successful rescues already, and each one of those rescues has been 45 minutes or less, with typically 1 or 2 officers involved.
And that's just changing the color of it? Or?
No, it's actually having the code and the GPS location. And see, we provide a map of the trail with the location of each one of these diamonds and the GPS points for each one of those to all of the emergency responders, and they're also on our TRACS website so that somebody using the trail can print that map and they know where those diamonds are located, so they know how far out there are on the trail, how far they've hiked or gone out on the trail.
What is the longest trail we have?
Oh, the Los Burros Trail is a good example. It's a 14-mile loop trail.
Oh, wow.
With a shortcut that it cuts it just about in half, but we've got trails that range all the way from about 3.5 to 4 miles up to 14 to 16 miles, and we have connector trails in between them so that you can start out on one trail, go on a connector trail, and go to another one. The Country Club Trail up in Pine Top is about a 4-mile loop. Well, the Chihuahua Pine Connector, the Chipmunk Connector, is an 8-mile connector that connects it with Los Burros. So you could start out on Country Club and go all the way out to Los Burros and loop around and come back. So it's an extensive trail system. The reason we build them as loops with connectors is so a lot of your equestrians and mountain bikers like to go on longer excursions, and that enables them to do that. They can start on one trail, go on a connector trail, do another trail, and loop back.
Wow. And how long did you say this was? You started doing this?
We just completed that project last summer. We got an Arizona Game and Fish Heritage Fund grant to help cover the costs. The cost of the materials, the diamonds, the decals, etc., was less than $3,000. And you figure what that's saving in personnel time and angst from the people that are out there, it's a huge savings. I took the information, once we successfully completed the project, I took it to Arizona State Parks Board. They oversee trail systems all over the state of Arizona. They liked it so much that the Parks Board voted to recommend it to all the trail systems in the state of Arizona as a possible model to improve safety on trail systems all over the state. I already had a call from the Red Rock Ranger District over in Sedona. They have 800 miles of trails, and they're planning to do the same thing on their trail system over there. So it's something that really is working.
And it's been since last summer, so
Since last summer.
about a year. So, and there's already been saves.
Oh,
for
yeah.
that.
Search and rescue people love this kind of thing. If we could do that everywhere, but
Yeah.
it isn't practical everywhere. But on the really heavily used trails, it's great.
Yeah,
It's great.
I know that you know down in Phoenix, usually you see it on the news all the time. People going out and they're getting lost
Right.
off of trails too. And I know that during the summer we have a lot more people that come up here to utilize, you know, the walks that we do. I've actually been on a trail before with a couple buddies riding on the bikes, and I remember I couldn't get. Well, we'd stop and I'd have to unpeel my hands out because it was something new for me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, am I going to make it? It was a lot of fun, but you have to definitely bring stuff with you to be prepared. And one of the things I did learn is we needed spare tires. Definitely
Yes.
needed that, because when you're the trails, you're just moving the debris and making it a walking path,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah.
But there's still rough sections in there too.
Yes.
Very
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. Yeah, I went over a couple rocks, and you know, I got a flat tire, but you know, that's part of the fun. And luckily, I was with the people who knew what they were doing, and they had the right equipment. So,
Yeah.
what would be some stuff that people would want to take with them?
Well, the main thing that people get in trouble with is going alone, to tell you the truth. Bring a friend. That's what you should bring first. Because if you do get in trouble, if you sprained an ankle, if you got hurt, then you would have somebody to go for help. It's much better to have 3 or 4 people, because ideally if somebody broke their leg, you would like to leave a person with that, and you'd like 2 people to hike out if they had to hike.
Right.
In the trail system, much of it is covered by cell phone, and that's excellent. But there are plenty of places that people go where there's no cell phone coverage at all.
So to have a good GPS unit and a compass is a good idea. Know how to use them. Take plenty of water.
Yep.
It gets really dry, as we all know up here, and you can get dehydrated really quickly. So good hiking boots, water, preferably wearing good sunscreen.
Yeah, without sunscreen, you're in trouble. Up
Probably
here in
have.
Arizona, there's
Yeah.
no. I forget it occasionally, and I pay for it.
You're closer to the sun.
Right.
Now, when you brought up the cell phone thing, and most of the trails, they do have cell phone coverage, but the people that you usually go out looking, maybe that aren't on trails and stuff, they didn't do any of that. They didn't call anybody. They didn't let anybody know. They don't have a cell phone on them. They just
Yeah, and
got lost?
sometimes, usually they don't, but every search is different, so you never know. In the Grand Canyon, the number 1 problem is people go alone. The number 2 problem is they don't bring water, and those can be life-threatening or even fatal mistakes there. But I would emphasize going alone is a terrible thing to do. Now, I do it fairly often. But I bring a cell phone and a GPS. Sometimes I bring a radio. I always know where I am. I don't wander too far.
And to let somebody, even especially if you're going alone, leave directions on where you think you're going to be going, so that with your spouse or your friend or something, or even on the windshield of your vehicle, here's where I'm planning to hike, so that if something happens out there and you've been out longer than what people anticipate, they at least have a starting point to start looking for you.
You know, another really important point, especially up here in northern Arizona when it becomes monsoon season, is to know what the weather's going to do. You could get caught in a lightning storm real easy here. The other thing that happens is, even though it's summer, in the morning or in the evening, if you get wet unexpectedly, there's still a chance for hypothermia.
Yes.
If it gets cold at all. The in-between seasons, like right now especially, it was just last week, it was getting down to 35. If you had been in gotten wet at that point, you could be in serious trouble.
Right.
So that's another thing that you should bring a flashlight. You don't expect to be out at night, but what if you get lost and can't find your way home? Then you have nothing to see with.
Or to even signal with.
what percentage do you think the people who've gotten lost were not prepared?
It always comes up unexpectedly, so it depends. We had the importance of bringing a partner. We had on 2 searches. One was on Mount Baldy, and we found the car, and he signed in at the trailhead, which is very responsible. He was never found. Another one in his car left a note what he intended to do. He's never been found yet either. But they were both alone. So you should also bring some sort of signaling device. A whistle's a good thing. You know, another really important point is, if you're the person who got lost, don't go cross country thinking you're going to take a shortcut. Stick with the roads. The very first thing that happens in a search is sheriff's deputies go out if the sheriff has been called. and they run the roads looking for the person who would be obviously on a road. Only when we're called in do we start looking off roads where somebody may have wandered, or we find footprints in a certain direction. There's a very sad story of somebody in the White Tank Mountains. It was night. They had a flashlight, but they got stuck. But they saw the lights of the city, so instead of staying on the trail, they went right for the city lights, and they became lost and they died, as a matter of fact. So stick with the roads, stick with the trails. If you find a well-used junction of a trail, that might be just a good place to wait. You know, people are going to come and look for you, unless you've told nobody you're going, of course.
And that's
I always tell my wife at least the area that I intend to be in, and that way, if something happens, she knows what to tell the sheriff when he comes looking for me. Of course, if that ever happens, I would be mortified. I would never want to.
No, I bet. Now, with that, the trails, there's no camping along the trails, they're just hiking trails?
Yeah, they're out in
Okay.
the National Forest, and you can camp almost anywhere in the National Forest.
Oh, really? So
Yes.
they could just bring their camping gear and hike maybe 7 miles one day and then camp and then turn around and hike back?
A lot of our equestrians like to do exactly that. They might start out on Juniper Ridge, or on Timber Mesa, which is right off of Porter Mountain, and go all the way out to Vernon, which is about a 40-mile excursion. They'll go out and maybe camp at Los Burros, and then the next day come back.
Are wild animals ever an issue up here?
They could be.
Yeah.
I have a friend who was stalked by a mountain lion.
Oh, that's uncomfortable.
That gave me pause. I've been on one trail where there was just a really bad smell in the air, and the hair on the back of my neck just went up, and I know it was a bear, but I don't know where he was. Other than that, elk are skittish. They just run off, and
Yeah.
deer. But
Yeah.
a skunk would give you problems.
Oh,
but-
yeah. Well, I've had turkey. I was on a trail before with turkey, and one, I didn't know they can fly, but I guess not very far. And two, I thought it was a helicopter landing. I honestly did. It was the loudest noise I've ever
Did you
heard.
have a whole
I had 4 of them go over my head, and I kept looking around because my dogs, I guess, spooked them out. I'm like, what is that noise? What is that noise? Looking around, and then all of a sudden they're like, and they weren't very high. I had to kind of duck a little bit, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they sound like
Yeah.
choppers.
I had 50 that were somehow, there must have been a wild animal coming close to them. I had no idea what that noise was. It was a cacophony, and kind of worried me at the time.
Exactly, because it sounds like it's landing right next to you.
We've been out, we do a lot of mountain biking, and I've been out in like the Los Burros area and came around a curve one time, and there were 2 elk that stood up. And I thought, wow, this is really nice. I'm going to stand here and watch. About the time my feet hit the ground, 38 elk stood up and started moving off as a herd. And you just stand there and think, how lucky am I to be in the National Forest, absolute beautiful scene, and get to see something like this because I'm off on one of the trails in this area.
Which is it's a great opportunity. That's why people go on them.
That's right.
So with the wild animals, I mean, would there be anything? I mean, we really, knock on wood, I don't think there's ever been much of an issue except for in town with that one woman.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they usually stay to themselves.
Yeah, unless like if you by just complete error came around and there was a mama bear there, she's going to protect her cubs, and you could be in trouble. But most of the time, they're going to try to stay away from you. And so the thing to do is to make good noise and try to appear real large, and most of the time that'll scare them off.
We've had some closures around the Heber area and out further west due to so many bears being in the area. Christopher Creek, I think they actually closed for a while. If you were going to be in that area and it wasn't closed and you had that concern, I would get a cowbell. And it just makes noise as you go along, and that if you alert a bear far enough ahead, they really aren't interested in you. If you startle a bear or get in between a cub and a mom, you could be in real trouble.
Yeah.
I take my dogs is what I try to do because I feel more confident with my dogs there, and I'm an NRA person. I have a gun if I need it, so I don't want to shoot an animal, but I would if it was attacking me. But there's some things that I would take on my personal hike, especially my dogs. I think my dogs, they go out and they sniff and they scare things away. And if they don't scare it away, they can be dinner before I am. No offense to them. But if it came down to that.
There's a funny story about bears. We were hiking in DuBois, Wyoming one time. We went into the local hardware store to get some supplies, and there was a little plaque in there that in this area they have grizzly bears and black bears, whatever. And they said, we really advise you to take bells, make noise, etc. And there was a little small plaque underneath the big one that said, and if you want to identify what kind of bear it is, the black bears are primarily vegetarian, so their scat will have twigs and leaves and berries and stuff like that in it. And the grizzly bear scat will have bells in it.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that will kind of freak you out. So if somebody wanted to become an SAV, what would they do? Or SAR, sorry.
Search and Rescue.
SAR, what would they do?
Well, get in contact with us, and the first thing that we do is have them fill out an application. We interview them, a few of our people interview them to see if they're suited for this kind of thing. After that, they have to go through a background check, including the sheriff does that part. You can't have any felonies on your record, and a clean background. After that, we accept the application first, then it goes to the sheriff, and if it gets through the sheriff, then they're members. At that point, we have a year probation that we can look at the person, they can look at us, and we can make sure it's a good fit. And we begin training. And like I say, we train every month. We train in GPS, map, compass. Tracking, of course, is one of the main things we do. Communications, radio is very important to us. And so we go out every month. We have requirements that if you miss 3 trainings in a row, there's a chance that you'll be dismissed, because we don't want to go on real searches with people who are untrained. And it's happened before. On one, we lost one of our searchers. Not a good thing.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Only for an hour, but it was an hour we couldn't do the real search also. So that's very important. Now our meetings, we have a monthly meeting also, but we're now doing them at the trainings to encourage people to come. And so the person has to have time to devote to this. It isn't something that, we don't do it for glory, good grief. There is no glory in it. But it's very satisfying when you find somebody, and either you bring closure to a missing person, or you find the missing person.
And reunite the family, which is important.
And so that's the reward that you get. And we do a lot more training than actual searching, but it's important. You have to. And we've seen units that come out with little training, and they're a nuisance. They actually cause more work than they do searching. And so we pride ourselves on good training, teaching all of our people aspects of search and rescue that they need to know.
As the public, I'm sure they're grateful for that, because that's the kind of person they want out there searching for their family member or themselves.
Yeah, it really comes down to it when you're involved and you've lost a person. Those people that we've helped are just very grateful for what we do. That's a good reward too.
It sounds like it. And Nick, how would people get involved with you?
TRAX, you can go on the TRAX website, you can Google White Mountain Trail System. There's a place where you can sign up to join TRAX. It's a free organization. We don't charge a membership fee. It's all volunteer, so our trail crew goes out once a week and works on the trail. That's even volunteer. We don't require people to do that. People work at their own level. We supply the tools and the hard hats and the instruction on how to properly maintain a trail. We have a monthly meeting, second Saturday of every month, where we talk about what's going on the trail, or we might have a speaker come in and describe things that are important to the group. So it's a free organization.
That's awesome. Do they have to be Sawyer certified, or usually you just bring in the other people to cut the trees? Or?
We have a formal volunteer agreement with Forest Service, and part of that, cool. it has to be approved and signed every year. Part of that is a sub-agreement about sawing. The Forest Service said, yes, we will have just a small select group of you trained to do the sawing. So we went to Show Low Fire Department. They provided the training to a certain prescribed level, and we have 6 people in the TRAX organization and 6 people in the White Mountain Open Trails Association, which is the motorized component, counterpart to TRAX, because we're all non-motorized trails. There's a motorized trail system up here, so the 2 groups can work together to clear off down trees and debris and things like that. But it's only a small group of people that are certified to do the sawing.
No, that's wonderful. It's working together with agencies. It sounds like you guys both do that a lot. I want to thank you both for coming on the show today. Mike and Nick, this has been awesome. It's really good information for the community to know, and to know that, if their family ever gets lost out there, they have those to thank and you guys to thank for coming out there and getting them.
You bet.
And
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Safe and Sound. Until next time, have a good day. Bye.
This episode of Safe and Sound was sponsored by Ladies Day, LLC.